Hello artists, and welcome to Drawing Level E. Let's get started. In front of me here, I've got my sketchbook ready to go, and I've got my name at the top, Drawing Level E circled, number 1, a line, and number 2. All right, let's take a look at our learning goals today. It says, I can shade using white, light gray, dark gray, and black. Use paper to not smear my shading. Make objects in the foreground have crisper shading. Objects in the background grayer. Make objects look three-dimensional. And I can shade the whole picture plane. All right. So first what I'm going to show you is how we're going to create three-dimensional objects using value. Value is just the lightness and darkness of different colors. So for our lightness and darkness, we're going to be using white, light gray, dark gray, and black. Now you have access to these cones in the drawing drawer, and you can grab a piece of free draw paper so that you can set this up so you can see for yourselves. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how these shadows work. So how this works is I have a light source, okay? And wherever that light source is, it's going to be lightest on the side of the light source and darkest with a shadow that comes off on the opposite side. So you're going to keep that in mind. And as this moves, you're going to notice the shadow changes. The side of the cone that's the lightest versus the darkest is going to change, okay? Also, depending upon where the light is, if the light is up taller, you're going to see more of that cone shape off to the side, right? So if here's my light source, opposite coming down like the sun, then my shadow might be longer or shorter, right? So you want to kind of keep that in mind. If it's right here towards the edge, it's going to have a longer cast shadow, okay? Sometimes if you have double light sources, it's going to even have a smaller secondary shadow. It just depends on what light source is brighter. All right, so let's get this out of the way and let's talk about how we're actually going to do this. So this first part, in this number 1 experiment part, we're just going to focus on creating a three-dimensional cone. That is what, with a shadow, that is what we're going to be accomplishing. So I grabbed the triangle tracer just to make it a little easier on myself. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my ebony pencil that I have. I'm going to go ahead and do this just all in ebony. And I'm going to go ahead and just trace this part. And I'd like you to do 2. I'd like you to try out 2. In the video, I'm only going to show you 1, but you will be doing 2. Now, you'll notice that this here is just a complete triangle, but this is a rounded, right? The edge of this, yes, it looks straight when I look at it like this, but I know it's round, okay? So to create that effect so that it also looks round is I'm going to take and just make a rounded bottom, okay? I'm going to do that, go ahead and do that on both here and here. All right, now as I saw in my with my light example here of how shadows work, I needed to pick a direction of where the sun is. So I'm going to pick that the sun is like over here, okay? I'm going to create a dot, and that's where my sun is going to be. So I know my shadow is going to be kind of short. It's going to be coming off to the side. So what's going to happen is I'm going to see that triangle kind of coming off, and I'm just going to sketch in where that shadow is coming from and how long it is, okay? And it's going to be kind of rounded on this side because, again, the bottom of the cone is rounded. It's a cone, not just a straight triangle, okay? All right, so then I also know that this side over here is going to be the lightest and this is going to be the darkest. So I'm going to have to create some value here going from black to the dark grays, the light grays, and then into the white, okay? So I'm going to start on the darker side, and I'm going to use the pressure of my hand to be able to create that darker shadow coming across on here and transitioning into my lighter grays with that, with the pressure of my hand. Remember, just like we practiced in level D, you know, you're going to go from light to dark with those tornadoes. It's kind of the same thing here. And then I'm even going to leave this part over here white. It's going to look rough for now. Just remember, you're going to have to go back and forth a little bit, okay? It's not going to be perfect the very first time you do it. So now to create that smooth transition, because it's kind of looking three-dimensional at this point, but I could do a lot better, right? So I'm going to use that blending stump to kind of blend it into the paper, right, to create that transition from light to dark. And I remember with my blending stump that the harder I push on it, the more, I guess, ground in the graphite's going to get to my paper. So you can go up and down, back and forth, but that's going to create that. And the less pressure I use, the less there is. So again, we want to get to that light to dark for the white. Now, again, I could do a lot better here. I'm going to use my eraser here, my clicky eraser. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this really weird line with my triangle that ended up happening and clean it up just a little bit. I'm also going to get rid of this bottom triangle line that I could see. I'm going to retry. I'm even going to darken up this side just a little bit by pushing in just a little bit more, and then I can really go from the light to dark and then really letting off that pressure as I get to the other side here. All right, and then go back in with my blending stump. Again, this is a back and forth. It's not going to be perfect the first time you ever try this. It's going to take some trying and retrying and messing up and all of that. Okay, so for movie making purposes, we're going to pretend that I've gotten it to the point of this one, right? We can see the difference. You can see the difference. This is starting to look three-dimensional. This really looks three-dimensional. Okay, so now we're going to start working on that shadow. Again, for the purposes of movie making, I could keep making this better, okay? But for the purposes of this video, we're gonna live with what we have at the moment. All right, so for the shadow, the darkest part of the shadow is gonna be right here at the very edge, okay? So I'm actually gonna take my pencil and make a really dark mark at the very edge, and then just like I do with my value, again, I'm gonna create that value. The shadow is gonna be lightest over here. Now, one of the things on my rubric was using a paper to not smear my shading. So for a lot of us, what's going to end up happening is as you're doing your shading, depending upon where it is, where your hand has to rest on the paper, you're going to start getting this ebony pencil, because it's so soft, into your hand, and then it's going to smear and mess up everything you've worked on. So that extra free draw piece of paper, you can now use it to kind of cover up what you've already done here. And then that way, when your hand has a place to rest and you're not messing up everything you've already done, you don't want to have to go back and redo all that, right? So you can move this paper around to however, so that your hand can rest comfortably without, one, you getting all messy, but two, without messing up your artwork. And again, it's darkest, and then as I come out, it's going to be lighter all the way to the white. And again, I'm going to use my blending stump here to kind of shade this out, smooth it out, get a really nice gradual blend. I don't have to push very hard. Blending stumps are so nice in that, especially with the shadow part, you really don't need to press hard, because it will do a lot of the work for you with how soft that ebony pencil is. Okay, so now I'm just going to go ahead and like refine where exactly those shadows are. From here, if you find your shadow is darker than your actual cone, you're going to need to go back in and fix that so that it makes sense. Visually, you will know if it makes sense or not. If it doesn't make sense, go back, kind of fix it. All right. So then after you've gotten through two of these, remember, I've only done one, but I'd like you to practice two, okay? Then you're going to move on to mini art. Okay, so first you're going to plan. You do not have to do a cone. I've done two cones here, but one of the things in your rubric was having something in the foreground or closer to you, and then having something in the background or farther away from you. You will need two objects, okay? One that is closer, bigger, and crisper, or easier to see the shadows and the transitions, and one that is smaller, farther away from you. It's gonna look fuzzier. So if we take a look at the shadows on these, this shadow is very crisp and defined, right? Even the transition from the value transition from one area to the other, very defined. I can clearly see all 4 levels. Here, it's smaller, it's harder to see, it's grayer and fuzzier. The shadow is fuzzier. It's not as dark on the bottom because my eyes, it's farther away from me, so my eyes cannot see it as well. So you will need 2 objects. And then the last thing on your rubric was that you could shade the whole picture plane, right? The picture plane is just the outline of the picture. So to shade the whole picture plane, it just means that you're creating a background versus the foreground, right? Sky versus land. Where are my objects sitting in comparison to where the background is or the sky? I need to see a difference between the two. Now here I've just gone ahead and shaded this in, whereas the ground is white, so that I can see it. Happy creating!